Hey, this is Jim. It is 7:51 a.m. in San Francisco, California on August the 17th. I'm not a financial advisor and I don't provide financial advice. So I want to do a GME update here. There's a chance that the stock can start to take off a little bit later today into this 11:50 a.m. PST zone of strength. This was the tweet that the message that I sent out to you guys a couple days ago that I thought that into this zone of strength this afternoon into 1150 on the 17th that we could hit this 43.75, which actually looked like a fairly aggressive target at the time. That price was hit yesterday. So we're running ahead of schedule. We still have this, what looks to me like an impressive zone of strength. I would consider it on a confidence scale to be, 75% plus. And if that happens, I want to show you guys what might unfold starting today. So I've updated the 60-minute chart that I posted on the site. I've added one new line here, and that's this thin black line. Point of origin is coming back here to May, a May spike high and a June spike high. Okay. The reason I included that is because although this setup right here that you see is not an expanding megaphone melt up fractal that has seen a price dropout, right? So it has the characteristics of an expanding megaphone, obviously, but the point at which it becomes a melt up fractal is if price drops below the green uptrend line. So I think you guys all understand that. So we have this green uptrend line, and what's happened is price saw really nice support right here and really nice support here in a reverse to the upside. So if we would have seen price drop out below this green line, then on a re-entry, that is technically an active expanding megaphone melt-up fractal, and you can anticipate that price wants to race up to this black dotted speed line. Since price has not dropped out of the bottom, this particular setup is not a melt-up fractal, but if price were to take off to the upside, we still pay attention to the speed line for potential price contact. It's just that the move isn't typically as violent. It would be more of like a stair step. Now, what we do have going for us in GME is we do have expanding megaphone melt-up fractal patterns at other fractal levels. It'll take a price advance to re-enter that particular megaphone pattern and start a melt-up. But when you start to build a case and take all of these different sort of pieces of evidence together, it starts to look really encouraging. Now back to this this thin black line that I've created off the May high and the June high. The reason I included that is because you can see where it acted as rejection right here. Well, if we are tracking, really nicely into this zone of strength that we've had on the board for multiple weeks. If price starts to move back above that black line, which is basically 44.55 vibration ish, then you start to see how it opens up more of a blue sky type of a setup, and we have this 53.50 retest sitting here. We've got 68.75 and 78. So again, even without this particular 60-minute model having seen a dropout. So it has not seen that dropout. But even without that, there are a lot of elements to this setup that, at least per my methodology, can point toward a potential very aggressive upside acceleration move. So that's where we are on this. As far as these retest levels here, those can be taken care of down the road. And so, I'm not too concerned about those as long as we're not moving into a zone of weakness. That's why I had them placed underneath this 812-ish zone of weakness. So those will move out into the future. Stock could trade to a new all-time high and then come back down and crash down to those levels months or years from now. Here's the other important takeaway from this particular chart in the price action. Some of you, if you're familiar with trading futures market and you trade crop reports and things like that, you know that the way that a lot of experienced traders interpret crop reports or oil inventory reports, things like that, is that if a certain piece of news related to the report is considered sort of a bullish piece of news or a bearish piece of news, if it's released the way it's anticipated by the traders around the world. If for instance, a bullish piece of news is released and the market does not react bullishly, the experienced traders turn around and sell or short the market, right? Because they didn't see the reaction on the news that they wanted to see, meaning that most of the people that were already bullish were already positioned that way prior to the report. All the buyers have already bought, leaves sort of an oh shit moment, and selling tends to pile in. Well, using that same sort of logic, when I look at my zones of strength and weakness, if price does not move aggressively down into a zone of weakness or does not move aggressively up into a zone of strength, that tells me something. So in this pattern we're looking at here, you can see that not only did we see contact on this green uptrend line into this 727 zone of weakness, but it also reached at least the top of my price box. So that's why it's always important to look at these price boxes, because it tells you under normal circumstances sort of where price should be able to move if it's tracking my model. So the fact that it was able to tap that price box, but only the very top end of that price box, tells you that the market that this particular stock GME is at least as strong as the minimum pullback I was expecting. So that's considered bullish. Whereas if you move all the way to the bottom of that box, it's more like, all right, the stock is not, it's not bid that well. It does not have a ton of buying support coming in, and it's a little bit sloppy. The fact that we overshot this, not only this retest level, but this zone of strength with that aggressive move, again, tells you, if anything, the stock is acting more bullishly than bearishly in this setup. Then here's the real tell. When we pull back down into this 812-ish zone of weakness, and the stock tracks, the price tracks directionally very nicely, but it doesn't even pierce the top portion of that price box that I drew for you guys. And it does not revisit that green uptrend line dating all the way back to the May lows. That's very bullish. Then it immediately moves up, attacks the minimum price box in front of the zone of strength date, right? So this zone of strength, 819-ish. Well, the stock attacked that price box on the 16th, I believe it was. So again, it is showing that it's, if anything, the stock is as strong or stronger than what I was thinking it would be moving into this setup. Okay, so everything about that's positive. Again, before we leave this chart, that thin black line, if we can bounce above that, then what was resistance can become support, and this stock can take off to the upside. So that's what that looks like. Again, I've got a new note here. Speed line is 95 and higher starting today, 817. That just means that if price were to melt straight up while I'm making this video, it would make contact around 95, and then it becomes successively higher number as we move out in time because of the trajectory of that speed line. So, by the time we move into this, which I believe is a really impressive looking zone of strength, sort of mid-September, that speed line will be sitting at 110 plus, which is a whisper away from this 120.75 split adjusted all-time high. So that's what that looks like. On the daily, you'll see this is an expanding megaphone melt-up fractal. So, point of origin back here into the early Q1 2021 lows, and then I'm sorry, obviously that goes back prior to that point, but and then you've got this aggressively angled speed line. The trajectory on this obviously allows for much greater than all-time high. It's sitting way up at $800 plus right now. So if we were to attack these retest levels and then re-enter, it's about $92 or higher right now. You're in a position where you could have re-entry into this expanding megaphone melt-up fractal, and you could really start to, just melt straight up into the hundreds and toward 800-ish. This also is interesting from the perspective that we could see a speed line jump. So that just means that if you go back to this 2002 and 2007, those highs, and this speed line that I've drawn off those highs, you see where even though the stock was aggressively above it at one point, it acted almost like vibration. You can see the thrashing above and below, and then broke down below. If this turns out to be sort of a large double bottom pattern here, and the stock moves back above all of those other key kind of triggering points I showed you on those other charts, we'll also get a speed line jump, meaning that price action can start to view this speed line as a supportive low, as opposed to a resistance type of a high. And again, if the stock moves up and attacks my retest levels here, again, those are split adjusted. You can see from the notes. Then obviously it shows really interesting bullish price action based on, again, a speed line jump here on this weekly. I'll end with the monthly. And again, if we move aggressively up and through the all-time high, we'd have a speed line jump on this monthly speed line as well. So, and importantly, I believe this candle, this key candle right here, excluding the wick, if you just look at the candle, top of the candle body there, that's where this note comes from. I'm just saying that if we move above 81, then a larger degree melt up can unfold. That also would sort of coincide with a speed line jump here. If you look at if you shot a horizontal line off of that 81 candle body high over into where we're trading now over the next couple months, it's basically syncs up and would show a speed line jump here. So that's what's going on. You guys know that today we have the zone of strength into 1150. We'll see what happens. If you see the stock start to move up aggressively, I think we'll be off and running. Actually, let me end with the Anemoi setup here just to show you some other further bullish evidence. So we obviously had a tight 4-trigger cluster right here. The stock is broken out to the upside. Backdrop of monthly velocity for the month of August is excellent. It's upside positive monthly velocity, and that will rise if the stock maintains its firmness throughout the rest of the month. Obviously, weekly velocity, same thing. It's positive and moving sharply higher. And again, for this week, we have a greater upside weekly velocity than we had last week. Here's last week, here's this week. So the idea is that any pullback in price, like we've had today, is viewed in the backdrop against the backdrop of rising bullish weekly velocity. Here's your daily velocity. We had cooled off, right? A little stair stepping down, cooling off period. And then now for today's velocity, we have this very strong velocity, the highest that it's been since peak velocity here. We don't have any negative divergences yet, because as price posted this sharp move to the upside, it came coincident with sharply rising positive daily velocity. So everything looks good there until and unless the stock breaks out above this high from August 8th. We won't know whether or not we're going to see a negative bearish velocity divergence against price. Even if we do, we know that we can go through multiple divergences before we have to worry about any kind of a reversal move. And even after reversal move, that's just telling you in the Anemoi terminal that price would want to cool off and come back and revisit the daily trigger. So no big deal. As far as the day trader for GME, take a quick look. You can see that the bot is flat right now, but that's just a function of the 1-minute trigger and 5-minute trigger pinning. If the stock starts to curl up toward our zone of strength this afternoon into 11:50 a.m. PST, then that bot will trigger long. The backdrop of hourly velocity looks excellent. You can see when price posted that high on the 16th that You don't have any negative slash bearish divergences here against velocity, velocity against price. Everything looks beautiful. So we'll need to see successive higher highs just to determine whether or not we're going to see a velocity divergence at the hourly level. As far as the 5-minute, it also showed only one or two divergences. All that was telling us is that the stock wants to cool off and revisit the 5-minute trigger. That happened, and it overshot a little bit. As we move down, you can see that we triggered not triggered, but we saw a positive divergence against 1-minute velocity. So price was moving lower right here, and you can see these gold vertical lines right here holding up. So that's a nice positive divergence. As far as 5-minute velocity, you didn't see a positive divergence, but if you're using the terminal, look for 5-minute velocity to flip, and that'll give you a good indication that you're about to see a trigger cross, that the bot's about to go long, and that the stock could start to run into this zone of strength here. So that's what things look like on my side, you guys. I will update the charts on the membership site. Every so often. It's when you have a setup like this, where we know that, at least in my work, it's clearly a bullish setup all the way into mid-September. There's no reason for me to constantly be updating these charts. Always keep an eye on this message section on the right-hand margin. If you want to receive those messages without having to visit the membership site and log in, just be sure to go to your My Account tab and activate the messaging tool by just selecting that box and checking that box. That's it from my side. Good luck, you guys.